I'm ready.
So, welcome to Bonehead. Today we have an.
No, you know what? No, you don't welcome to Bonehead. Screw yourselves. Why are you listening to us? Go listen to something more fantastic, like I don't know, how to cook with shrimp. There's
oh my
a podcast
God! Is there a podcast about cooking with shrimp? I want to be on that show. Screw this.
I'm glad James brought that home because I have to be honest with you,
Teasing me about cooking with shrimp.
that didn't really. And then James somehow found a way.
I'm going to look up a podcast, How to Cook with Shrimp, because if not, that's our next show.
Yeah.
Could it be worse? Could the ratings be worse?
The ratings could always be worst.
Worst? They could always be a wiener.
Once again, to quote Harvey Danger, one thing's certain: we'll have problems, and then we'll have bigger ones.
Beggars.
Beggars.
Did I tell everybody that we were going to be at Comic-Con and have a live show?
There's one called the Shrimp Tank.
What the hell's that about?
What can a young entrepreneur figure out how to turn their dreams into reality? Just take a step into the Shrimp Tank. Shrimp Tank brings you interviews in some of the most successful businesses owners in the United States to learn the don'ts.
So it's Shark Tank on a budget, is what you're telling me.
Podcasts, yeah.
White Shrimp Tank.
Ooh, how about rock shrimp? We'll get Ozzy.
Oh, rock lobster. Go with me on this one.
That's too much finery. I can't afford lobster.
Rock lobster. I want to start quoting The Job, but I don't think anybody's going to know that I'm quoting The Job, and they're all going to say, "Why is he so racist?"
Well, they're already saying that now. So.
No. I'm pretty sure the word you're looking for is sexist.
You can be both.
I don't think so.
I won't.
Trump has taught me anything. I'll just be acquitted.
Yeah.
So, let's not talk politics because that's not this show. And it brings us down. We have wanted to do this topic for a while. And by we, Chad has aggravated the piss out of us till we've finally done this topic.
No. Every week you go, what topic are we doing? I give you a list. Gangsters is on that list.
Of every week?
Yeah, we have a list. Okay. This is what we haven't done.
Well, if you'll shut up for a second, I'm going to give you a half-ass compliment.
Oh,
I was putting... What are you good lording about?
Let me slice my wrist now so I don't have to go through this trauma.
It's an earthquake.
Why are you on the bridge of the original Enterprise?
I thought you were going to say the River Kwai.
Hard to port. Hard to starboard.
If you're listening,
frankly, sir, I'm exhausted.
Looking around with his camera. God, that's a lot of you, dude. And you've got a lot of negative space over to your left, my right.
He's kind of following the rule of fourth.
Yeah, that's a lot of James.
Go ahead.
Anyway, so we're going to have to do a two-parter on this.
We are?
It doesn't necessarily have to be next week, but there's just too much.
Okay. Yes, there are a lot of gangster flicks.
We're doing gangster movies. That's right. Well, there's a lot of gangster flicks, but I'm trying to say I've got too much to talk about.
Okay.
It was forever narrowing and down three, and I finally picked three things that I didn't think either one of you bastards would pick.
Yeah.
I truly did.
I'll be honest with you.
There are so many gangster movies I love.
One of mine is a classic because I went more obscure for the gangster flicks. Well, not one of them. One of them's not obscure, but I did go less known because there are so many well-known gangster flicks.
Did you do anything in the 30s or the 40s?
No,
I'm good.
No, all of mine are more recent.
Nope,
I did not. I wanted to go old school, but I figured you and James would cover those, so I went.
James, you have anything in the 30s or 40s?
Hold on, I actually have to check a date. Hold on, let me check.
While he's holding, I do want to talk about one that we probably
50s. 50s is my list.
Okay, good.
I'm going to assume nobody is the
Ooh,
Irish.
I could have done the Killers.
Is the Irishman on anybody's list?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
James, I'm assuming you were going to. Okay, so the one that we just briefly talk about the Irishman. I'm not going to go into details. I just want to do one complaint.
Martin Scorsese's a hack.
No.
So what you're saying is Chad, you'll take the never mind.
No, it's a hack criticism about the whole de-aging technique.
It didn't work for you?
No, well, so when I was watching it, I was a little weirded out that Joe Pesci kept calling Robert De Niro kid because when I was looking at the movie, I assumed Robert De Niro was playing a 40-year-old. He is playing a 29-year-old man in that movie.
Does it look like he's 29?
No, he looks like he's 40, and he moves like he's 70.
Because he's 70.
Yeah, he's 70. So I was like, that whole thing took me out of it. I mean, it's a good film. It's worth a watch. By all means, I'm never going to criticize Scorsese. He's an amazing director.
Whatever. Have you ever seen that piece of shit Goodfellas? What about The Departed? Speaking of gangster movies.
Yes, those are not on my list.
No, but they're good.
They're amazing. But again, those are more well-known, and I wanted to go more under the radar.
I thought you were going to say under the covers.
No.
In which case, where's your hand going? They don't call him Hand Job Chad for nothing.
So, yeah. I figured we would go a little different route.
All right. Who wants to go first?
You want me to start?
Go
Not
for
particularly.
Well, go to hell. I'm going to start with this film by this fellow named Martin Scorsese.
Never heard of him.
Yeah, well, evidently he's made some films.
After Hours is not a gangster film.
Shit in it.
It's
Also got Cheech and Chong.
It's one that actually doesn't get brought up as a gangster film very often, but I want to bring it up because I think it's a great example of early gangsters. It's Gangs of New York.
That's got gangster shit in it.
It does. It does, because you have the Irish, you have the different ethnicities. You also have the Civil War in the background. As kind of, the recruiting.
Is the Civil War going on at the same time as Gangs of New York? I thought the Civil War was before Gangs of New York.
It ends with the citywide draft riot.
Yeah. Is that what it is? I can't. Yeah. It's been a long time since.
And they get blown up by the Union Army,
which actually happened.
Yeah. Which is one of the only times that they got fired on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Spoilers. Well, by the way, if you're watching this show and you don't realize we're going to be spoiling movies, again, Cooking with Shrimp.
No, it's been a long time since I've seen it. And, honestly, I enjoyed it, but I liked it better the second time because there's just certain things, like when it cuts to the Bill the Butcher and the visual of the American flag in his eyeball. I always thought that was so hack. I mean, he's Scorsese.
Yeah.
Well, and there are scenes, and you got to remember that was delayed in release because of a certain event that happened in America that made everybody a little bit more patriotic, at least briefly.
I wonder if that
ending
was that ending tacked on because of that for the gang.
That ending, from my understanding, that ending was the same, but it got extended.
Okay.
Like, it was going to end with the city slowly growing up, but then they expanded how much the city grows.
Gotcha.
But no, speaking of the eye scene, it's when he's sitting there with the knife tapping his glass eye.
Oh, that gets me every time.
That's the one where I'm like, okay. But if you've never seen Gangs of New York,
it's not glass, it's wood. Right?
Yeah, he's tapping his eye. Yeah.
It's 1800s. I don't think they had glass eyes back then.
Are you sure?
No.
Well, the only reason I'm arguing with you is because I saw an episode of American Pickers, and they were picking glass eyes.
I could be completely wrong.
Or was it that show?
I might be confusing Gangs of New York with Pirates of the Caribbean.
I think you are.
They're very
that just hit me. I'm going to shut up.
Glass eyes then.
James, go on.
Because they'd have there was a glass eye salesman. No shit. They'd have a box. You open it up, and there'd be different kinds of glass eyes you could buy from the fucker.
Go ahead, James.
I want the one that's constantly got pink eye. I don't want to go to work. Oh my God, conjunctivitis once again has struck. That's typical.
Anyway, if you've never seen it, Leonardo DiCaprio, Daniel Day-Lewis, and that's based on the actual character. In the movie, they call him Bill the Butcher, and his name is William Cutting. It's actually based on William Poole, if you want the real history. So look up
William Poole.
Is the name of the actual guy he's based on. But it starts with, as most good gang films do, you have to have rival gangs.
Yeah.
And
it's a glass eye.
I thought it was.
It's the Catholic Irish and the people that consider themselves Americans, which again is funny because they've only settled in America one or two generations before.
Yeah.
But Bill the Butcher views himself as a true American, and the Irish as imposing upon that. And there's a lot of religious commentary. Bill's worried about the fact that the Catholics will do whatever the man in the pointy hat tells them to do, I believe is his terminology. And that they're going to take over America. And so he The Irish Catholic gang is called the Dead Rabbits.
Joke.
Yeah, don't do it.
The Irish Catholic gang is called the Dead Rabbits.
It's worse than what you think it is.
I'm pretty sure. I know. I'm pretty sure it's always going to be worse.
I've been sitting here trying to think of a Merrimack joke because it being made out of iron, and then I couldn't think of anything really funny, and aluminium wasn't funny, and then it went way worse.
The
You were saying, sir.
The movie is actually based on a history that was written in.
Hold on, historical jokes are just for you, Chad.
Hysterical jokes? Is that what you said?
I was trying to stay historical.
I know you were,
but it might have came out hysterical. What was the other iron ship? Merrimack and the what?
The Nina.
No,
And the Santa Maria.
Those were made out of plexiglass.
Glass bottom boats, a lot of them.
Bottom boats. We're gonna look at squids on the way to the new world.
And they were all driven by Captain Jack Sparrow.
And his wooden eyes.
God damn it.
This movie, Gangs of New York, was based on Scorsese in 1970. Did you know it took him this long?
Yeah, no. Was that not supposed to be his follow-up? It wasn't Mean Streets. I think that was supposed to be his follow-up to Taxi Driver.
Yes. You're absolutely right. He discovered the book in 1970.
No studying.
He did Mean Streets in 73, Taxi Driver in 76. In 1979, he got the rights to the book finally.
Wow.
He read the book in 1970. The book is Herbert Asbury's The Gangs of New York, An Informal History of the Underworld. It was published in 1927.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's the history of the underworld. We think about Chicago, Al Capone, and all that stuff. This was the history written when that stuff was actually going on. Scorsese realized this would be a great book. It will show that we've always had this underworld in America.
You mean it'd be a great movie because the book already existed. Hands. What am I supposed to do with these? Jazz.
In 1999, he was able to finally make a partnership with this man whose name we're not supposed to mention anymore, who agreed to finally make the movie. The big problem was that New York didn't look like New York did it in the
no, that's
1860s.
Do you have information about the sets?
Go ahead.
That's actually they spent I think over $90 million building it, and that I want to say that is one of the last movies with that huge of practical sets.
They did film in New York,
but you're absolutely right. That New York doesn't exist. That New York built out of wood.
He's wrong.
Doesn't exist.
Joe's
Wood.
Wrong.
Why?
We all know it was Avatar.
Yeah. I have a story about that too. Did you know when you went into the digital bay or whatever when they were working on what they looked like? Do you know what the mantra was above the door?
No.
Must be fuckable.
Nice.
But you kind of get it, right?
Yeah, I get it.
They filmed some in New York, but a lot of it was filmed in Italy. Original cast members that were cast had to leave production because it took too long. So Robert De Niro, shockingly, was in a Scorsese film, as was William Dafoe, but they had to leave because...
Who were they going to play?
I don't know. I know they were originally in the film because you can find the history of it, and they had to leave, which actually drove the cost up because they still had to pay them. So this movie overshot its budget by 25%.
Wow.
Which isn't a big deal in theory. It's Scorsese, it still made money. But it was budgeted only for $100 million, which is a lot of money to normal people, but not
right.
So it was $125 million. Don't worry. That guy we're not supposed to mention anymore still made money. It was 193 in the box office.
Yeah, and that's probably the domestic box office where they had the world's biggest star.
Yeah. Yeah, Henry Thomas is in it. You're right.
Yeah, that's right. I was
going to phone home.
Yeah.
Music is also by Howard
Riley. I almost said John C. McGinley. That'd have been a different picture.
Yeah.
But actually, speaking of which, it's got a great cast. You have Brendan Gleeson, Henry Thomas, John C. Reilly, Jim Broadbent, Cameron Diaz, Daniel Day-Lewis, Leonardo DiCaprio, and a bunch of other people that you'll recognize from this. And I mean, it's a good cast. I really enjoy it. It's a heavy movie to watch on a random day, but it is. I had to bring it up because it is probably.
That's one of the movies I can actually, wherever it's playing, I can actually sit down and watch it. I enjoy it.
These are the hands that built America. Chad.
I like it. I
Listen.
probably need to rewatch it. I don't have an attachment to it. And I'm probably I actually think Cameron Diaz gets shit. I actually think she's a decent actress.
She is.
I just, something about her in that movie that I don't know what it is.
I've been to the 5 Points. In reality, I've actually been to the 5 Points. I recommend going there and hanging out at 3 a.m.
Are you done?
Gangs of New York is my first one. Yeah.
Who's next?
Go for it. Because James brought up a classic, you're gonna bring up a classic, and then I'm gonna throw a screw into the works.
Oh my God!
Dead air.
Dead air. What are you doing? You
According
made this
to
list.
James Cagney's autobiography, Mae Clark's ex-husband, Lou Bryce, enjoyed the grapefruit scene so much that he went to the movie theater every day just to watch that scene and only watch that scene. Don't know what I'm talking about?
No, I know what you're talking about.
Her ex-husband went to the movie every day to watch that one scene.
Okay.
Okay, not done there. All right. So hold on for 1 second. Later on set, James Cagney stared at Jean Harlow's cleavage and asked, likely in perfect innocence and good humor, how do you keep those things up? I iced them, Harlow said before trotting off to her dressing room to do just that. That's right. We're talking about the Public Enemy.
Pre-code.
Huh?
That was a pre-code film, too.
The pre-code film. That's absolutely right. Directed by William Wellman, starring James Cagney and Jean Harlow. Here's the plot. A young hoodlum rises up through the ranks of the Chicago underworld, even as a gangster's accidental death threatens to spark a bloody mob war. Listen, we cannot talk about Gangster Pictures without having Cagney.
Who actually did not like playing gangster.
No,
films.
in fact,
he was a song and dance man.
He was a song and dance man. He loved to do that. In fact, he did it. What was the last one he did? The music, was there one in the 70s? What's the name of it?
I don't know.
I think there is. I'm missing something. I apologize to our listeners. No, and he always thought that they were low budget, and they were. They oftentimes were low budget. We'll talk about something else here later, but I can't bring it up without seeing it. And there's a great scene in it. If you don't know, if you've never seen Public Enemy, check it. But what I'm referring to with the grapefruit is he picks up a piece of grapefruit and shoves it in a woman's face.
Right.
Well, this is 1931, 32, right? Is it 31?
I'll look it up.
1931. You just didn't do things like that. Not in a picture. People were shot and killed throughout that movie.
Right.
There's a lot of death. There's a lot of action.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sorry. I thought you had it pulled up.
No, I'm going to look up the 1970s thing he was in.
It's not my favorite.
No.
But I'm going to talk. My next one's going to be about that, since I know everybody else left me the 30s and the 40s is my favorite. The one that's most quotable.
He was in the Ballad of Smokey the Bear.
Well, weren't we all? But I need to just talk about that for a second. I only had the two little points that I thought, and actually I was going back through, and there are some quotes.
Public Enemy's 1931.
1931. I was close. I did say 31.
Yep.
There's some good quotes in it, but there are no great quotes. The other great quotes come actually from the other movie I'm going to talk about in a minute.
Which was Postcode.
Yep, that's right. But it has the great quotes. The ones that people quote, the ones where movies like Naked Gun 33 and a third rip off, and people go, that's funny. And you're like, oh, shit. No, they're ripping something off that you've never even seen.
Yeah.
Chad?
Okay.
See, I'll make it quick so I can spend time on something else.
Yeah, I'm gonna be quick on this one, too. So, James brought up Gangs of New York. Joe brought up The Public Enemy.
Man.
Two pieces of classic cinema history. Let me bring one that's not.
Original Gangsters.
No. The Crew.
With Burt Reynolds?
Richard Dreyfuss, Burt Reynolds, Dan Hedaya, and Seymour Cassell.
One of these things doesn't belong. One of these things.
Not to be confused with Howard Cosell.
Directed by Michael Denner.
No idea.
Who hasn't done anything other than The Crew. He does this was his only foray into actual cinema. He has done nothing but TV work. This was his only movie.
You know, I don't think I've ever actually seen anything but scenes in it. Why did you pick that one?
Because it's obscure, and I always bring up some
I've got a half dozen obscure ones here that don't suck.
It's obscure. It doesn't necessarily suck. There are funny moments in it.
Well, it's got Burt Reynolds.
It also has Richard Dreyfuss.
And Dan Hedaya.
And
Actually, I see more. They're all great character actors. Yeah. Well.
And Joe Mantegna.
I can't do a fat. I want to do a fat Tony, but I don't do it very well.
Wait. Anyway. But no.
See, Joe Mantegna was Fat Tony.
Yeah, I know.
In The Simpsons. You ever seen The Simpsons?
No, never seen it.
No.
What is that?
Well, you should check it out.
Anyway,
I've heard good things.
It was written by Barry Finaro, who did this, Men in Black 2.
I think you was like you're doing a shocker. Who did this?
Know. And he also did Kingpin. He wrote the screenplay for Kingpin
that the Farrellys rewrote.
Yeah, and he directed Platypus Man.
Oh,
he wrote Platypus Man. I'm sorry, all the episodes of
with Richard Jenney.
With Richard Jenney, which is why I had to bring it up. Platypus Man is a forgotten show that was actually pretty good.
Richard Jenney was one of the funniest comedians of all time, and I don't think he gets credit.
No, he doesn't.
Even though he kind of took himself out of the limelight, to say.
So let's talk about the
or just the normal daylight.
Yeah. He's no longer a day or night walker.
Too soon.
The movie is about 4 retired gangsters who are living in a decaying retirement community in Florida. When they are being squeezed out to make room for more high-rent properties, they decide to come out of retirement to get more money to stay in their home. What follows is a hilarious series of events.
Is it?
Yes. They light the tail of a rat on fire, and it burns down a gangster's home. Comedy gold.
That's not the type of behavior.
You're laughing. Is it humor, or is there something in the back of your mind?
I don't know. Maybe I'm a sicko who likes to harm rats.
Maybe. I'm just thinking of Harlan Ellison talking about taking dates. Do you remember this, James? In the 60s to the dump to shoot rats. Sorry. Do you remember that story? He thought they thought I was bug fuck crazy. And he was.
It's a good way to edit out people that don't want to really spend time with you.
You want to go to the dump and shoot rats?
But no, there are many great gangster films that I could bring up. I wanted to talk about The Crew for 2 minutes. I am done. It is funny. It is a good ensemble cast. How they connect with one another. Seymour Cassell basically has no lines whatsoever. He does everything silent because he doesn't talk in the movie, and he pulls it off. It's a decent film. It's not the best gangster film ever made. That's coming later on, but I want to talk about The Crew. James.
I wanted to talk about a movie that doesn't suck. Though it's not what?
Have you seen The Crew?
I have, but it's been a while.
I'm sitting here questioning whether I've seen it or not now.
That film is older now. I want to talk about probably my favorite gang-related film where Elijah Cook Jr. plays a pretty major role.
Gang-related. With Tupac and Jim Belushi.
Yeah, totally. He's in that. Is he really? I don't know.
I don't know. I've never seen gang-related.
I want to talk about Stanley Kubrick's The Killing.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's I rewatched it today actually because I was like, I've seen that, but I want to watch it again. And I'll be honest, Eli Wallach Jr. plays. I'm sorry, Elisha Cook Jr.
I said Joe Mantegna was in The Crew. No, that is Miguel Sandoval.
They couldn't afford Joe Mantegna. They went and got the poor man's Joe Mantegna. I don't even know who Gail Sandabali is.
You would if you looked him up. Go ahead, James.
If you've never seen The Killing, it's Stanley Kubrick who went on to do nothing. Just a bum after this. Never did any other movie.
Didn't do jack shit.
No. Don't even look him up. Don't bother. But
all work and no play meant Big Stanley something.
No, and there was no Odysseys. Nothing after this.
Well, no, he didn't do a movie called The Odyssey.
Anyway, Elisha Cook Jr. is not the star of this, but he is one of the most. His final scene in the movie is one of the most compelling moments in film from this time period. They couldn't go too extreme with it, but his final scene with his wife is just a great scene. Spoiler: if you haven't seen it, I'm going to spoil the
People talk about Sterling Hayden, right?
Sterling Hayden's a star.
Yeah.
He plays Johnny. Okay, so the general plot is Johnny.
No studying.
Johnny has been in prison, and he gets released after 5 years, and he's with his main squeeze. No, this lady has waited for him, and literally her entire world revolves around him. She even says, "I'm not pretty. I'm not smart. You're all I've got." He's getting a gang together. He's going to do one last score because gangster films, that always works out.
Yep.
Hey, it worked for the crew.
And what he does is he basically, Elisha Cook Jr. plays the money taker at a horse track. And there's a big horse race running up, and they're going to rob it. And what's cool, what Stanley Kubrick does, and what's cool about the film is it has a narrator that's kind of, that does time, basically. All this narrator, I mean, he'll say, at 4:20, Johnny did this. Mm-hmm. But then he'll jump back 30 minutes earlier, this is what happened. And it goes back and forth between these different characters to show exactly what was going on at the time. And then at the end, it all pulls together. But the reason I love Elisha Cook's scene is the entire movie falls apart, or the entire plot falls apart, because he makes the mistake of trusting his wife. And his final scene in the film, and if you haven't seen it, you'll still be compelled.
So the moral of the story is never trust your wife.
It's a compelling scene. She's cheating on him. She tells her boyfriend, so he's literally, her boyfriend's going to wait, her lover is going to wait until they rob it, and then he's going to rob them. And he shows up to rob them, and Elisha Cook is in the back, hears him coming to rob him. He shoots him. Johnny's not even there with the money yet. He Tommy guns down everybody else that's involved. Elisha Cook manages to kill him and the other guy that's with him. And then he has bullets in him, and he's got blood all over his face where he has been hit by a shot. And he stumbles all the way home, and it's just him opening the door. And originally she doesn't turn around. She's packing her luggage to leave with her lover. And she even
lover.
Val, who is her side, I guess.
Side piece.
Yeah, Val say, "Val, are you ready to go? I'm almost packed." And it's, of course, her husband. His name is George in the movie, and he literally just has a.
Is he of the jungle?
Yeah, he's from the jungle. Chad.
Okay, just checking.
It's a well-known fact that Elisha Cook Jr. often played, even in House on Hill. The backstory they don't go into is that he's from the jungle, Chad.
Always has those splinters in his face. Gotta be ill.
Anyway, he's covered it, and he basically says, "Why'd you do it?" And then she says, "And I'm sick. I need to go to the hospital." And she turns to him and said, "Go outside and call a cab." And he shoots her, and then he dies. He falls and knocks over a bird cage, and you see the parrot still talking. And then it cuts. And it's just compelling to watch because he has been stepped on his entire life, and he kept coming back to her. And you can tell from the first time he sees her that he does care about her, but you know that it's not going to work out. And he still tells her about the plot. It's a great, compelling film. And yes, Sterling Hayden is the main guy. The acting's good. There's some paternal things that go on. You want, even though you know they're terrible, you want them to make it. And I've already said, most of them die. He is delayed. He doesn't get there with the money in time. So when he gets there, he realizes everything went sideways, and he leaves. And I won't give away the final line because the final line is
Rosebud.
I think it's 3 or 4 words, and it literally just sums up. He's not dead, but he knows there's no way out.
Yeah, that's Stanley Kubrick.
The Killing.
Who's next?
Not to be confused with that show, The Killing. Because every time I looked for The Killing, even when I was pulling it up on my I don't know if it was Amazon or Netflix where I watched it, but it kept saying, "Do you mean Killing the TV show?" And I'm like, "No, I'm trying to watch The Killing."
All right. This one has number 18 of the top 100 best lines of all time. We're sticking with Jimmy Cagney.
Real quick, Joe, I wanted to say this. I mentioned the narration that I actually liked. Kubrick hated it. The studio made them at it because they said, "You can't jump time and not tell people."
Mm-hmm.
So just FYI, it turns out Kubrick didn't necessarily like the way the studio treated his movie. Never happened again, luckily.
Never. Actually, no, he pretty much had control, but that's beside the point. Made it my top of the world. And then it blows to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Oddly enough, I actually didn't realize in this movie we're going to talk about is Raoul Walsh's Wyatt Heat with James Cagney. I didn't realize several of the characters are actually based on real people, real villains.
Okay.
They're close relationship. The character's name's Cody Jarrett, the Jimmy Cagney villain, and he's really despicable in this. You think he's bad in Public Enemy. This guy has I don't know that this guy has any kind of. Have you ever seen it?
You haven't said the name of the movie yet.
White Heat. I said White Heat.
Oh, you said White Heat. I actually have not seen White Heat. I've wanted to.
You were a big fan of Latino Heat, though, in the day.
It's 1940s, which would have been quite a jump, but he doesn't have any kind of redeemable characteristics.
Also, like Acapulco Heat.
The unusual relationship, he's obsessed with his mother. He and his mother are very close. Was based on the domineering mother was inspired by the real life bank robbers Kate Barker, aka Ma Barker, and her sons, actually. Character Cody Jarrett was based on New York murderer Francis Crowley, who engaged in pitch battle with police in 1931 at the age of 18. Murdered on January 32. His last words, "Send my love to my mother." It was James Cagney himself who had the idea of making Cody psychotic. Cagney attributed the performance to his father's alcoholic rages, which he had witnessed as a child, as well as someone that he'd seen in a visit at the mental institution. So it's Virginia Mayo. Cody Jarrett is the sadistic leader of a ruthless gang of thieves. Afflicted by terrible headaches and fiercely devoted to his mom, Cody is a volatile, violent, and eccentric leader. I don't need to give you the rest of the story. He's a bad mofo. Shut your mouth. I'm talking about Cody Jarrett. If you've ever had the opportunity, and you won't have it again, and if you haven't had the opportunity to ride the ride, then watch it on YouTube. It was one of my favorite rides at Disney. It used to be called MGM Studios.
Mm-hmm.
It then changed its name to Hollywood Studios, and then it's going to change its name again.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, that's the scuttlebutt for the last 2 years.
Okay.
Doesn't mean it won't happen. One of my favorite rides was the Great American Movie Ride. It was right there if you walk down their Main Street, USA, or Hollywood, USA. Or Hollywood and Vine, I guess.
It was made to look like the Chinese garment. What is that? The Chinese theater.
And from the 30s. You walk down, and there was the Chinese theater, and you go in and ride the Great American Movie Ride. I enjoyed it. It had Alien, it had Cowboy, it had a John Wayne scene, and it had Jimmy Cagney. And basically, that one, I think, is straight out of White Heat. I can't remember if it's Public Enemy or White Heat.
James officially doesn't give a shit about what you're saying.
No, he just walked the hell out of here. If you're listening at home, James just got up and said, "Fuck it, I'm done. I've got tenure, and I need to write rights. Anyway, I loved it. I always enjoyed it. It's probably where I actually was introduced because I rode that ride when I was 11 or 12 years old to those movies somewhat because I hadn't got to watch them. It's not like they were playing in the holler all the time. You had to seek them out. White Heat's a lot of fun. Definitely go out and check it out. I could sit here and tell you about it, but we're talking about an 80-year-old movie.
Right.
You're either going to watch it or you're not going to watch it. I guarantee you'll have more fun with it, even if you think you won't. Something interesting. You would think, because he was known for those roles, that he would have been more appreciative of him. But you're right. He's a song and dance man. He actually shit on White Heat, which is considered a classic a little bit, saying, "Yeah, it's just another one of those low budget fodder films."
Right.
Yeah. And he oddly enough, I think he only made one or two westerns. And don't you find that fascinating, considering when he was in the movie business?
Oh yeah.
He only made a couple. One that I can think of. I think there's two. That's it.
Wow. I didn't realize.
How could he not have made more westerns? That's all they were effing making.
That and gangster films.
That's it, right?
Yeah, I mean,
and Warner Brothers, gangster films built Warner Brothers. Just like people forget, horror films built Universal. Actually, I think that's slightly remembered, a little bit better, just because of Universal monsters. But gangster films built Warner Brothers.
Gangster films in the 1930s were the Marvel of that time.
There was that and the horror films. There were the monsters.
Right.
And Universal was built by the monster films. Sorry.
No.
Just like people will forget, well, New Line actually went the way of the dinosaur for the most part. It got absorbed by Warner Brothers, Time Warner. But that house was built by Freddy Krueger.
Right. It was straight horror films.
Yep.
I mean, it was more than horror films, but it was known for the horror films.
Yeah.
Let me get my thing back up. All right.
That's going to take a while. Do you need me to spit in my hand?
So I'm not doing mine chronologically. And again, I thought about bringing up movies like James Cagney or Martin Scorsese, but I want to talk about other gangster films that.
I've got one none of you picked, and it's not even going to be in the 30s or 40s.
Oh, well,
they made it in the last couple of decades.
Okay. I'm going
to tell you later.
Okay, I'm dying with anticipation.
You just hide and watch. He'll tell you.
Hide and watch. You get back there under that tank.
Tank?
Tank. I don't know. It sounded funny in my head.
It sounded like kank, and I'm like, what's a kank?
You get under that tank.
No, sir.
40 ain't gonna wash itself, James.
I need the power washer.
Hello, how may we help you?
So I felt like this movie was kind of forgotten in the past 2 years. I'm talking about Legend. Written and directed by Brian Helgeland, who directed Payback, 42, A Knight's Tale, but he
was also rewritten and redirected by someone else too.
Yeah, and he also wrote L.A. Confidential, Mystic River, Conspiracy Theory, and shout out to Mick Strawn, his first movie ever in Hollywood history, Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 4.
Do you know the history of that screenplay? Did Mick tell you about it? Do you know any much about it? Is it Mick? Is it a lot of it Mick's book?
I mean, he talked about it a little bit in our episode too.
Yeah, the writer's strike.
Yeah.
Brian got credit.
Yes. So it was Tom Hardy, Emily Browning, and Christopher Eccleston. Tom Hardy is in a dual role. This follows the exploits of the Cray twins. There's a movie from the 80s called The Krays, which is not good at all.
It's it's interesting because those two are interesting because they actually existed.
Agreed.
That's a British film.
It is a British film.
I've seen it. A long time ago.
And the whole thing about this one too is when they originally saw The Krays, the people who produced this movie wanted to redo it, but they wanted to make it less British and make it more of an American gangster film, which is why this one got made. So the movie tells the story of the Cray twins, both played by Tom Hardy, who led a reign of terror in London during the 1960s. The movie follows their meteoric ride to the top of London's crime world and their eventual downfall, which was even more chaotic than the rise up. Tom Hardy plays both the level-headed, manipulative Reggie Cray and the completely psychotic Ron Cray, and that's what made this movie amazing to me. Him playing two completely different people and doing it flawlessly.
I agree. The only thing about that movie to me that's memorable is him as the Krays.
Agreed.
Okay.
Which
and Brian Helgeland has done.
So he plays both the Cray brothers?
Yeah, he plays them both.
So he's Cray?
Yeah. I can't believe we walked into that.
Yeah.
A Knight's Tale. You give a shout out to Brian Helgeland because that's probably the one his most successful film.
Yeah.
It's A Knight's Tale.
Yeah, even though I love Payback too.
He's Cray for real, not for play.
But Brian Helgeland first learned of the Cray twins when he was working on an aborted biopic about Led Zeppelin.
Do you have to use the word aborted?
I pulled this straight out of the IMDb.
You pulled this straight out of your stem cell research.
So I didn't really reword it, but this is straight from IMDb.
No, that's okay. They support the stem cells.
He had been accompanying Jimmy Page and Robert Plant on a world tour when he noticed
that must suck.
Yeah.
But that's a shitty job. I bet he got paid while he was doing it.
Probably.
Bastard.
And he noticed one of their entourage was missing a middle finger. When asked, they don't say what finger it was. When he asked how he lost the finger, he was told the Cray twins cut it off. Intrigued by this, Helgeland actually went out and I'm saying it wrong because it's a racist, to find out more about the Notorious Gangsters. That's how he started writing the script.
Yeah.
Which led to them going to the producers and going, okay, we want to make this because we love the Krays, but we want to make it more American, even though it's about British gangsters. No, but the movie's really fascinating just to see how awful these people were. And they don't pull any punches. These are terrible people. They don't make them, because that's one of the things I didn't really care about the original Krays, is they kind of made them a little compassionate.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I just thought it was boring. The
original one is boring.
The original was a little boring. It's interesting because those people actually existed.
And the original doesn't really focus on Ron Cray's homosexuality.
Yeah, I was about to say, but
It
is that true?
Oh yeah.
So he was out before it was fashionable,
right?
To be out.
And honestly, there's a documentary about the Crays. I believe it's on Netflix. There's actually speculation that even Reggie was gay, which is how because the whole story about how he met his wife or his soon-to-be wife is not really accurate. The story is that Reggie actually met her through her brother. And the reason they were together is probably because it's speculated that Reggie and him had a homosexual relationship in prison.
Oh, okay.
And that's how he got introduced to.
Well, it was prison.
Yes.
I mean,
but supposedly
they have a term for that.
And if you listen to the documentary, those actually went out once they were into the real world as well. He favored both. Anyway, so the Cray, it's a great piece of about the Crays, real people that existed.
I'm not criticizing you.
No.
It's an uneven movie. I don't know that it's a movie I could really recommend other than if you're really into Tom Hardy, that it's a fantastic performance from Tom Hardy. It's absolutely amazing.
Even if you're not a Tom Hardy fan, if you want to see...
If you're interested in gangsters, I think it's a good one.
Yes. Better than him playing Shinzon, the Picard clone.
Yes.
Yes. Every time we talk about Tom Hardy, you have to bring up Star Trek Nemesis.
You know what it's not better than? Did you see when he was Venom? And I was the only one out of the three of us, the non-comic book guy that defended.
I still haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it? It's okay.
No,
it's not very good, but it's okay.
How does it compare
to shitty as everybody said it was?
Hold on.
Tom Hardy's the redeemable part of it.
Hold on, real quick. How does that compare to Joker? Now let me take this off.
I've never seen Joker.
Fuck the Joker.
You still mad? You weren't this angry about it last week.
I just don't. I don't see the point in it. I just don't. Joaquin Phoenix does a great job, but fuck
it's not the Joker. It's not. I mean, it's. Yeah. No,
I'm not. I wasn't angry watching the Joker as I was the Justice League, or Superman Returns.
Did I send you Joe Blow? What the fuck happened to this movie, Justice League?
No, you sent me the Super Mario Brothers.
Well, that's good. That I thought was more up your alley. Watch the Justice League one.
Okay,
it's pretty good.
So anyway, we're talking about Joker. We're talking about superhero films, and we're talking about gangsters. James, go.
Well, you talked about one based on an actual case. Now I'll talk about one based on an actual case.
Goodfellas.
I'm going to punch you in the throat.
Untouchables.
This film.
Elliot Mess and the Unflushables.
This film.
Have to use that goddamn 2-ply.
Go good speed. See, I quoted not that movie.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's the Chicago. Anyway, no.
One about the
So this film actually was based on.
I got that screwed up.
You did. I wasn't going to correct you.
You should have. Are you going to talk?
I was going to, but y'all seem to be having a moment. You need a moment. You gonna patch things up. You gonna work on it.
I didn't know we were on the rocks until I got that certified letter from that.
So this is a movie that bombed hard.
More than the Craze. But I'd be more curious about what happened to the Craze. Why they just dumped it.
Yeah, that's true.
This film though was directed by Jonathan. Is it Hensley? Directed The Punisher and wrote. He's more known for his screenplay writing. Because he wrote the screenplay for the original Jumanji, Die Hard with a Vengeance, A Far Off Place. He wrote The Punisher.
What movie is it, dear?
But anyway, so he directed The Punisher was the first film he directed. Jonathan Hensley, though, was tapped to tell the story of Danny Green. And if you don't know the story of Danny Green, Danny Green was the person who effectively stood up to the mafia in Cleveland. And if you think the mafia is not big in Cleveland, they were in the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't make Danny Green a hero, though. If you go back and read the actual story of them, children wrote songs about how epic he was.
He was.
He was Irish, and he worked as a longshoreman unloading grain.
So I haven't said the name of the movie, buddy.
I know. I'm getting there.
Okay.
And
I didn't have his way.
He went from unloading grain to becoming the union boss to going down for union corruption and then coming back and working his way up, manipulating different people to rival the mafia, forming, and I don't think the film ever actually says the title. He called it something like the Celtic Coalition or something. And they were able to actually drive out the mafia. And as Chad said, they tried to kill him by car bomb multiple times. Sometimes the car blew up and he would walk away.
They blew up his house.
They blew up his house, and he and his wife.
Atlantic City by the band, and they blew up the house too. Does anybody know the song I'm talking about?
36 car bombs in Cleveland in the summer of '76. Look it up. The film is called Kill the Irishman. It is, and Christopher Walken's in it. The cast, he is played by Ray Stevenson,
right?
Who went on to play another form of Punisher. Vincent D'Onofrio.
I've never seen it.
It's really good.
Val Kilmer. Thank you. Val Kilmer, Christopher Walken, and pretty much anybody that ever played an Italian guy on The Sopranos. It came out and it kept fluctuating in the box office. It premiered low, then it jumped up like 70% the next day. Then it dropped the next day, then it went back up. And then finally theaters said they were tired of it. What's interesting about it, though, is Christopher Walken plays a Jewish guy that has always been left alone by the mafia. And he's the first one that kind of almost betrays Danny Green. And then he's the one, he has the line, kill the Irishman. Here's $100,000 for the first person who kills the Irishman. The reason this is an interesting case, and Linda Cardellini's in it and a couple other people. But the overall cool part about it is they intercut actual scenes from the news when this happened. So it jumps back to, here's a news clip from 1974, showing this guy's rise to power and fall. And the very end of the movie, they actually show the clip where, in the movie, they dramatize it a little bit, where he says, listen, if these mafia guys wants to find me, there's the trailer I work in. My house is down here. I sleep above that bar. I'm easy to find. They show that actual clip, and his last words in the interview was, the interviewer said something like, aren't you afraid that if you keep trying to call people out, they'll come for you? And his last part of the interview, as he walks into the trailer, is when he calls your number, it doesn't matter who's out to get you. He was a terrible human being, but he arguably is the reason the mafia is not in Cleveland today. Or as the end of the movie says, they've never recovered. They don't say they're no longer there, but they are not the power they once were in Cleveland. And again, it's not that he was a great guy, but the guy that eventually killed him in real life, in the movie, he's played by Robert Davi, or Davey.
I've heard it pronounced both ways, but I really think it's Davi.
Ray Ferrito is the guy that he plays, and that's the guy that actually did finally manage to kill him. After, I think it was something like the 7th car bomb finally got him. After they had tried to shoot him, stab him, everything else, they finally got him coming out of a dentist appointment. And he, and what happened was that then the mafia boss, the local one, tried to turn on Ray Ferrito, and Ray Ferrito went, listen, I killed the Irishman. I'll turn evidence, and went straight to the FBI. And that actually led to a chain reaction to where 5 New York crime families got named in that turnaround. It's now the movie's big critique has been what's a lot like Goodfellas, but it's based on the actual case. The problem is Jonathan Hansley is a big fan of Goodfellas, and so he does a lot of homages to the way Scorsese shoots film.
Yeah,
like blood splatters when he punches and cutting away at certain times. That being said, this is actually based on an actual film. It caused me to go back, and I wanted to find out more about Danny Green. He's insane. And what the movie doesn't cover was he was in the military and actually started to train other people. He's in the Marines, and the movie makes allusions to the fact that he read all the time. He basically fell out of school, but he became obsessed with reading Irish history, and he truly believed in this idea of the Irish, knights, and this idea that he was ordained through his history. And so the movie doesn't go into that as much, but it's a very interesting case that happened in Cleveland in the mid-'70s that I had never heard of before.
All right.
Kill the Irishman. Check it out.
Mine is recent too, and it's a little more obscure. The director and actor teamed up both in the 2000s to do two quite different, in my opinion, gangster films. Not necessarily what you would think of as gangster films. And the first one they did was based on a graphic novel, which the director had never bothered to read and didn't know after he signed on, and then didn't go back to read it because he was already rewriting the screenplay that already existed.
Okay.
What? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
We're talking about David Cronenberg's A History of Violence. What?
No.
I think it's a great movie.
No. Did I give you a look like I'm disagreeing with you?
John Wagner and Vince Locke wrote the graphic novel, which I've never read either. Have you guys ever read it?
Nope.
Did you know William Hurt I don't remember this, but he was the main boss.
Mm-hmm.
And he's only on the screen for 10 minutes. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for that. Do you remember that?
I did not know he was nominated.
I didn't either.
And I thought it was actually less than 10 minutes. It seemed like he was barely in there.
Barely in at the end. Viggo Mortensen is fantastic in it.
Oh, hands down.
Maria Bello is fantastic in it. Of course, she's a wonderful actress anyway. Yeah. Ed Harris, fantastic. I could just keep going.
Yeah. Everybody in that movie.
The Rock's Ed Harris?
Except the son.
Yeah.
I'd hated the son.
Well, that's okay. A mild-mannered man becomes a local hero through an act of violence which sets off repercussions that will shake his family to its very core. One interesting tidbit, it came out in 2010 on, it's the last American film to come out on VHS in 2010.
That is interesting. I did not know that.
I couldn't believe that.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do here or there, but I guess there had to be the last one.
Yeah, there had to be.
It's A History of Violence, by the way. So Cronenberg received the script and had no idea that it was actually based on a graphic novel. An interesting thing that didn't come up in my research that I just know about it.
Was this his catapult out of horror?
That's what I was about to tell you. Is it close to what you're thinking, but not quite the same? So before that, he'd done a movie called Spider.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Cronenberg may have made a movie you don't like, but Cronenberg's never made an uninteresting film.
Right.
Agree?
Well, and Spider is, to me, the way he sets it up, I mean, down to if you've never seen Spider, he chain smokes. And the fingers have the
So
great.
Ralph Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes is amazing in that movie.
So what I was about to tell you all is that what we forget is Cronenberg was working for the studios in the 80s.
Right.
The Fly was a big studio picture that was produced by Mel Brooks, and it was a big hit, and then Fox put a lot of money behind it. It was made to be successful. And then he kind of ventured away from the studio and did Dead Ringers and started doing independent films again. Well, that's cool. Throughout the 90s and 2000s, he actually, by this time, needed to work and needed to make money. I don't know if you all knew that. He had still never gotten paid a dime for making Spider.
Wow.
Never gotten any money out of it and still hadn't received any money. And he actually told his agent, I've got to have a movie. And that's how we got A History of Violence.
Wow.
I think it's fascinating. It's not on here. I couldn't find it. I just happened to know it. And what happened is he got the screenplay. He doesn't get credit, but he actually rewrote the entire screenplay, but he never got screenplay credit for it. And then by the time he figured out that it was based on a graphic novel, he was too far down the rabbit hole and said, well, I just don't want to know. I've made my own thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
To you all, it's like, well, it's done. I actually kind of understand. My curiosity probably would have got the best of me to read it. But I do kind of understand, I'm already making this movie. This is the story I want to do. If I'm going to read it, is it going to influence me one way or the other? Why don't we do it and then after it's done? What I love about this, past the great acting, well, past everybody being a great actor, is that this may be Viggo Mortensen's best role. And I'll tell you why, in my opinion. He starts out as a chef. Well, he owns a little diner. His wife, they lived in a small town. He owns a little diner. These two serial killer, psychopaths, murderer, robbers come in. One of them played by Stephen McHattie. If you don't know who that is, Google that son of a bitch. He's a great character actor.
Right.
Canadian. Fantastic. And they come in the diner to cause trouble. And I didn't know. I was reading a little bit more about it. I need to rewatch it. If you go look, the way he reacts is completely different from the rest of the diner. It's so subtle. And there's a time when he can attack, but he doesn't. And then if you go back and rewatch it, you realize he's waiting till one of them is paying less attention.
Huh.
but it's all subtle and built in.
Yeah.
Now, what it is that he's actually, his real name is Joey. He was a gangster who fled from the business, settled down, married this girl,
High school cheerleader.
They have kids.
Because losers always whine about their best.
Right. And they have the perfect little family. But the thing is can you change your nature? So these come in, he kills both of these people through violence. And he's a hero. Well, that gets out into the media. And Ed Harris is a gangster who's lost his eye, and he lost his eye to this guy whose original name was Joey. And he says, I know a lot of faces, but when I close this eye, I always see Joey.
Right.
So he goes to town to kill him. Well, he has to leave, and then the family starts to figure out. And here's what I find beautiful about that film and this performance. As he gets closer and closer to having to go kill these gangsters because they won't leave him alone, his accent changes.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets more and more and more of that original, I think it's from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
This Philly accent that he never had at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And his real self keeps coming more and more out. And it has a haunted ending.
Yes.
It's okay for me. I mean, this movie's been out.
We've already said spoilers. Like I said, if people already don't know that we tell the endings of movies, our 40 people are going to be.
You can know how all these movies end.
Oh, you should see A History of Violence.
And you can still and that was my entire thing. It doesn't matter that I've told you that Kill the Irishman ends with him dead because it's a history.
I'm gonna cut into before you talk about the ending. There's the one scene where I believe after he kills, in the middle of the movie, and he's covered in blood, and he walks up to his son, and all that's going on is the music. He's not saying a word, but he's looking at his son covered in blood, and he just reaches out to give him a hug.
Yes.
You can see that there's, just by Vigo's silent stare, that something is not clicking in his mind. He is reverting back to this old style gangster, but he's trying to hold on.
He still loves his son.
He still loves his son and is still trying to grasp on what he had and is now lost because of what has happened. Just by a simple stare and a hug, covered in blood. It's an amazing scene.
And he loves his family. And that's what I want to talk about the ending.
Even though I hate his fucking son.
and if you go back and look at interviews when the movie came out, Cronenberg talked about being a Darwinist.
Yeah.
And how, certain people are just superior. And that they learn. And he plays out in the movie because the son gets in a fight at school and beats the shit out of a kid. So he obviously never saw his dad until this time.
Right.
So is it genetically in there? Is it Darwinism? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But Cronenberg had all these layers of things that he believed that he built into the movie. So the ending of the scene is all of them around the table. He had to go kill all the gangsters. Of course he does it. He gets back to his home. Kind of, for example, The Searchers. Can you ever go home? Right. And he goes home and they're all sitting around the dinner table. It's late at night, as I recall, and they're just kind of crying, looking at one another. And there's two ways you could look at it. The family is completely broken and it'll never recover, or the family is broken, but they're still together in a family.
Because their love is stronger.
And their love is stronger. Yeah. I prefer to look at it as the latter.
Same here.
Even before my child, because I think my child has ruined me in a good way, probably in several different facets of my life. But I still believe to look at it that they still love one another. That's still his dad. That's still his wife. That's still her husband. Yes, they didn't know certain things about him, but that make their love for each other any different.
Yeah, I mean that's how I'd always interpreted it as well. But
don't you think you could look at it the other way?
Yeah, you could totally. And I looked at it at both ways, but I do tend to accept the fact that
it's a haunting scene.
That they're just happy that he's home. They're dealing with the emotions of knowing what they know, but their love for him is still stronger than dealing with his past.
Yes, and I hope it works out for him. I doubt that Cronenberg's going to make a sequel, but I hope they go back and they're able to cope and they don't end up in divorce court and whatnot.
Joe, but I'll be honest right now. I'll write current events of violence today. We've got the history. I'll write the current events.
I love the movie. The other one would be Eastern Promises, which is about the Russian mafia, which is a whole other set of fucked up, which is actually true, right?
Yeah.
And it's a great movie too. It's very enjoyable. However, History of Violence to me is the superior one.
Right.
Although he gives a great performance.
He does.
With his dick out fighting.
Yeah, in the shower.
In the shower.
I know that's how I like to tussle, boys.
Let me take my whacker out. Gonna whack people with that? Nope.
All right.
Now that we're done with penises, we're never done with penis.
I saved my last. It's not my last. I am going to bring up one more at the end.
Damn you!
But so what are we filming both episodes tonight? What are we doing?
No, I'm tired. I can't do both.
Okay, I just want.
We don't have to do another. Like I said earlier, I could do two of them.
I can do two of them because I was.
So we may revisit. Why don't you all let us know how you enjoyed this? We say this all the time.
Yeah. And nobody's
ever lets us know. But
some people are voting on that post.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'm going to bring up one of my favorite gangster films of all time. It's one of those ones that a lot of people don't know that a lot of people don't know about it. The Long Good Friday.
Oh,
yeah.
It is actually the breakout performance of one of my favorite actors of all time, Bob Hoskins. I didn't realize that this was his breakout role. I thought he was
Mona Lisa.
But this was actually the one that broke him into the next level. It was. It came out in 1980, the year of my birth.
You're old as fuck.
I'm aware.
I'm 2 years older than fuck.
So the writer and director actually don't have anything of note other than The Long Good Friday.
I didn't know that.
John McKenzie, who has directed quite a bit, but this was his biggest movie of note.
Do you know I don't think I've ever seen it. I think I've only seen scenes.
It's so good.
Do you have a copy?
No,
Where did you find it?
It was on Netflix, and it was on Netflix when I watched it. It's no longer streaming anywhere because I tried to look for it this afternoon.
Well, now I have something to watch. Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome. And written by Barry Keefe.
It is currently streaming if you have the Criterion channel or the Criterion prescription.
No.
Well, then you will not be seeing The Long Good. There's a database now that will tell you where everything's streaming.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
But Bob Hoskins stars Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren, and it is the movie debut of A1 Pierce Brosnan, who has one line in the whole movie.
You doing?
I don't know.
This
it's just
right now.
I have no idea. But he and his line was improvised. It wasn't in the script, but he thought he'd be clever.
Y'all film it? Is this on?
Either one of you want to know what his most memorable line?
Of course we don't.
Do you want to guess?
I just guessed. You don't eat that Big Mac?
No, James?
Is it?
Close. Close.
McRibwich.
It's the same syllable. Hi.
As in the greeting, or is boy this shit's good?
No. Hi as in the greeting.
Oh. I prefer boy this shit's good.
He plays Irishman number 1.
Why does he get to be number 1? Why can't he be number 2? Nobody wants to be number 2.
Who does number 2 work for?
Should never end a sentence on a preposition, Mike Myers.
But the story involves an up-and-coming gangster.
Yeah.
Who is on the verge of cementing a very profitable deal. He is developing. He wants to take a piece of London dock or shipping area and turn it into something, and he has this great deal with an American company.
He's basically trying to go legit, right? And it's the Olympic Games. Like
he's trying to go legit.
I've never heard that plot before.
Yeah.
He's trying to go legit, but it's also centered around the then future London Olympic Games.
Yeah. Are you sure he was not too legit to even quit? Hey!
Just gonna let you go there.
But anyway,
too legit to quit.
So all this amazing stuff is happening, but his world starts to crumble immediately on Good Friday. And the movie actually takes place over the span of 24 hours because what has happened, there has been several incidents that has challenged his authority. And this company gives him 24 hours to show that he is still in power, or they're backing out of this deal, and there goes all of his chances of success in life. So it's all about his struggle to figure out this foe. I don't want to. I'm not going to ruin it this time. I want you all to go look.
No, I need to see it. I'm waiting for James to give me a gift card to the Criterion channel.
Is there a gift card to the Criterion? I don't know if there is.
Yeah, it's right there. Kroger next to those other ones.
Really? I didn't know.
But as I mentioned at the beginning, this was Hoskins' breakout performance, and it was almost ruined. The producers of this film...
There was a rabbit who wouldn't stop talking.
Who framed him? Who framed Bob Hoskins?
Was there a rabbit who framed Bob Hoskins?
No, there were some American producers to this movie who did not want to release it stateside because they said his London accent was so thick.
Cockney, right? It's Cockney.
It's almost Cockney that that the American audience would not understand him. So they actually went out and hired somebody to overdub his voice.
Who was it?
They didn't say who it was. But
it wasn't James.
And because they said it was so incomprehensible, but Hoskins actually fought. He was an up and coming actor. He fought, sued them, and he got backing from Warren Beatty and a couple other people to ensure that this did not happen. And they won.
How does Warren Beatty have anything to do with that?
They were friends. But Warren Beatty wanted to ensure that Bob Hoskins' actual talent was not diminished by somebody overdubbing his lines. And it really is a great performance by both Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren, who plays his wife.
Helen Mirren.
And the ending to that movie is spectacular. I don't want to say what happens in the ending, but the ending is really silent. There's music playing behind it, and it's really, really loud. And I was always curious as to, because you can see Bob Hoskins and Helen Mirren's faces, and they are doing some amazing work, but it is silent. And I was always curious about that because it does throw me a little, but at the same time, it pulled me in because their fates are sealed at the end of this movie. It turned out that the reason they had to put the music at such high levels is because the director, John McKenzie, was yelling at Bob Hoskins the entire time as to the emotion that he wanted Bob Hoskins to display. And he was yelling it so loud that they couldn't get rid of it in post. So they just muted it out and overdubbed the music.
Did you say smuted it out?
Overdub? No, wait.
You said smuted.
I don't know. Muted it out.
I just like smooted.
I got braces. But no.
They smooted his language.
So it actually ended up, that little faux pas actually ended up working to end that movie on an amazing note. So again, The Long Good Friday.
All right. I could do 52,000 honorable mentions. Let's limit it to one.
Okay.
Well, if I'm only going to do one, and I'll save my other ones then if we do a future episode about.
Yeah, let's do that, boys. What do you think?
Okay.
We got over an hour. How much?
I think
I do want to one honorable mention because I won't bring it up in part 2.
I mean, if you guys want to do more, we can, but we kind of
no, because this one we talked about when we were doing previously that I was not going to bring up because we'd already talked about it during the cop movies. I do want to mention Dick Tracy because of the amazing performance of the mob characters in that movie, including Al Pacino, William Forsythe, Edo Ross, who played Itchy, R.G. Armstrong, Terry Silva, and Chuck Hicks, who played the brow of all of 5 Minutes.
Oh, the brow.
So, no, Dick Tracy is just one of those. It's a cop movie. It's a mob movie. It's a gangster film. It's
based on a comic book.
It
pretty much just reached into Chad's pants and said, "Let me give you a handy J Tuesday."
Yes.
So my honorable mention. There are tons of gangster films, but there are also many stories about Michael Sullivan. Some say he was a decent man. Some say there were no good in him at all. But I once spent 6 weeks on the road with him in the winter of 1931. This is our story. Based on a comic book, Road to Perdition.
Oh, that was my honorable one, actually. Chad, look.
Yeah.
Starring the future Superman, Tyler, I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name.
I thought he was going to say Tom Hanks.
No, Tyler Hoechlin is now Superman on the WB show.
Well, who's Tom Hanks?
He is Michael Sullivan, and Michael Sullivan Jr. was Tyler
Green Lantern.
No, he's fighting. Tom Hanks is fighting angels and demons.
Oh, no, he kicked the shit out of Mr. Rogers. Or is he Mr. Rogers?
I was depressed when I read that all that stuff in that movie's fake.
What?
The movie where he plays Mr. Rogers.
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I haven't seen it.
But Tom Hanks, if you've never seen Road to Perdition, watch it because it's a great movie.
It's based on a comic book.
Based on a comic. If you ever know,
wrong me.
If you ever run into somebody,
only our YouTube video will find that even remotely funny.
No. If you ever run into somebody that says there's no good comic books, that all comic book movies suck, tie them to a chair and make them watch Road to Perdition. Now you're going to jail,
But
you
it's
can't tie
directed
people
by
to
Sam.
shit.
Let's be honest too. It's directed by Oscar winner Sam Mendes.
Yes.
They
But
gave
that
American Beauty.
that comic
New
series,
1917.
that comic series got sequels in and of itself. There's a parallel story called On the Road to Perdition, which tells the story of other characters that we see glimpses of, and we get that. But the sequels are Road to Purgatory, which is about his military service, because at the end of the movie he adopts a different name.
More of a longer than an honorable mention.
And then Road to Paradise, and then actually the last follow up is Return to Perdition.
And then the sequel to that was "We're on the road to Morocco." Ah, that
but
beat and that.
But Joe, do you know what this is all an allusion to?
Did you forget Bob Hope?
I did forget Bob Hope's name.
I'm just checking.
Bing and Bob.
You know what this is was considered an adaptation of, and the authors admitted that it was a huge inspiration.
What?
The same thing that a lot of people point to for the Mandalorian. It's Lone Wolf and Cub.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, Lone Wolf McQuaid. That's what I heard. Well,
DJ and the Bear.
Honestly, I don't want to do my
Grizzly Adams.
mention. I actually want to hold it for the next episode.
Yeah, I was going to do an honorable mention, but I'm not going to do it because if we're going to do it,
Yeah, Eastern Promises. If you're going to go on and do Viggo Mortensen, go ahead and Cronenberg do Eastern Promises. That's a hell of a back to back. I kind of want to do that right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, it was good talking to you all. Where's the booze? I'm going to go watch me some Viggo.
Wrong man.
Hey, wrong man. All right. So
the Scourge of Carpathia.
If you're still listening to us or watching us, we have something going on Twitter, James, right? Where they can this one will
close.
Form of the Destructor.
This one will close pretty soon, but we do want feedback from you all, and we found better than Facebook. We don't get a lot of when we post on Facebook. We don't get a lot.
No, but everybody that follows us is on Facebook.
But the people who click on buttons evidently are on Twitter, because I think we're up to almost 20 votes for a topic.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I voted once or twice myself.
Oh, I don't think. I mean, were you on different devices?
No, I voted once though. I did.
You can vote once. That's how democracy works, Joe.
I don't know. It's all up in the air this week.
I'm going to say I just almost had a 3 minute a baby moment. I swear to God, I thought I saw somebody move behind Joe's head.
That's just
the
Agnes.
old dead lady's right over there behind the wall. The cat keeps scratching at it, meowing and shit.
That's just Agnes. She don't do nothing except eat souls. You're fine.
Well,
you don't got one.
All right, the sulfur smells. I get it, but it's nice and toasty in the basement.
By the way, I forgot I had my headset on. I almost went to grab something, but I was like, "What? Nope."
So they need to go to the Tweeter sphere and fill out a form and
it's a button you click. It's a poll. You click which one you
try
want
not to smoke it.
We threw up 4 options.
We threw up every day.
That's how I stay so fit. No, that's but we threw up 4 options for a show that you can pick what we do. When this one closes, which I think this one will close on Sunday.
Couldn't believe it. It was a criticism of a colleague, believe it or not. Boy, I sure am sweet.
Anyway, this one I think closes on Monday. The first one will, but we will post another one right after that. And we literally just off the top of our head throw out 4 episodes. Whichever one you all vote on, we will.
Don't say we. This was your doing.
Yeah.
Although one of those I really want to do, believe it or not, it was the one I voted for.
And 2 of those I really want to do too. I was like, oh, damn, those are good ideas.
Yeah, the one was really good.
Well, I'll be honest. I was sitting here and I was like, what have we thrown around? Because, for example, one of them is food and movies. And we have mentioned that twice.
That's over on the board.
And so I was like, let's put it up and see what people vote on. So that's where those came from. They came out of my vague recollections of things we had talked about in passing before.
All right.
After this one closes, we'll put up another one. I'll put up another one. I tend to run Twitter, though they have access. But I'm just...
I
don't know the password either.
I sent it to both of you.
Well, you've sent me lots of things.
I know. It really
Scabies was the one I kept.
Did you say scabies?
Yes.
I don't have scabies.
Pick them off.
I actually have very bad reaction to scabies.
Especially on your junk.
No, I'm extremely allergic to that type of thing.
It's
bad. It's a bad scene, Joe. It's a bad scene.
Oh.
Bad call, Ripley.
What the hell are you washing this in? It's kind of fragrant. Who does your laundry?
I do.
No, it's Woo.
Did you not take her shoes away from her and tell her to? Did she bake a pie maybe while she was doing the laundry? Have you made some suggestions?
I already told you before we started recording. I had chicken pot pie soup. She doesn't actually make.
I want to live in a world where
dick is what it smelled like when he belched it out later.
I want to live in a world where Chad's
Bigfoot's dick smells anus. I'm maybe making an assumption.
I want to live in a world where Chad's laundry is done by Woo from Deadwood.
Oh, and he's the San Francisco.
Yeah. That's. I want to live in that world.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Bonehead. If you enjoyed this and you'd like to have another gangsta episode, please let us know.
Go listen to How to Cook with Shrimp.
I want to be on How to Cook with Shrimp.
Why don't you push stop so I don't have to cut all this?